So I'm pleased to present, actually I am very interested in this talk, Katelyn Eubanks, who is Information Security Architect for the City of Sioux Falls. And you can explain why you got drafted to give this talk, but this follows on to the last talk. And I'm concerned about it because I work for the government, and I'm not even here to help you. So, Katelyn.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here to talk about communication and security, how to gain understanding and rapport in a seemingly perplexing field. So that might be kind of funny, seeing how we have such a short and obvious presentation on how to simplify communication when it comes to your infrastructure, but we'll go ahead and give it a try, shall we? So again, let's see here. You know who I am. So first I want to give a little introduction about the City of Sioux Falls. So Sioux Falls, South Dakota, we have about 200,000 residents that live within our city. Our department contains about 12 different departments, so fire, libraries, police, public parking. We have obviously the technology department. We have water reclamation, we have skate environments, and with that we have about 1,500 employees that the technology department needs to help and manage. So with that variety of different departments, we have hundreds and hundreds of software applications that we have to take care of, right? So this probably sounds familiar to lots of different environments, nothing new. Obviously there are multiple needs per department as far as technology is concerned. I mean, if you think about all the way from the library serving public with, checking out books, story times, to our police and fire that are 24/7, to our SCADA environments that provide city water, city electricity, okay? So like I said, quite a wide variety that we need to protect. In our little infrastructure, we have about 2,000 endpoint devices. That's about 1,700 endpoints, laptops, desktops, things like that. And we actually have 450 servers, not 350. And we recently just increased our security team, so it's not just me. We now have 2 people, so that's just awesome. We also have a security administrator that helps do all the security things that we need to do. So this is my little team. This is, obviously you can tell right in the middle of the COVID era. We all had to wear masks, but hopefully you get it. It says, we are IT. We've grown since then. We have about 28 people on our team, so a lot of these faces are no longer with us, but you get the point. We're a pretty cool team, pretty close, right? So, as a security architect and spreading communication and security, what are the most common questions that I'm asked, on a daily basis, right? One of my favorite ones is, are we protected from ransomware? So if anyone knows how to answer that question, please let me know. It's a hard one. And the reason for that is because we have so many layers in security, right? So how do you answer to someone who has no idea what security is? How are we protected from ransomware, okay? So generally I say, sure, okay? Why is our endpoint protection so invasive, right? We all have moved past the days of ESET, hopefully, and you've gone into these next generation endpoint protection systems, ones that deal with ransomware protection, malware, cloud analysis, things like that. And our end users love it. They love waiting for their items to be downloaded from their emails. They love the username and password field scanned, right? No one likes that. So I get that question a lot. Can you just whitelist it, right, on the endpoint? Like, why do you have to scan every download, every field that we do? So that's always one of my favorite ones. For the networkers out there, can we just open up the whole /24 subnet on the firewall for a vendor and just let them in? We've all heard that one too, right? Next, why do we have security awareness training? I don't even use a computer. Now, that's ironic right there. Boop. There we go. Why do we have to do security awareness training? I don't even use the internet. That's one of my favorite ones. So we do have a street department, love them. They do take care of the snow and ice on our roads. Again, South Dakota, it's pretty snowy. And so we always have to sell our security awareness training platform. Can we stop making password complexity a requirement? I'm sure everyone remembers about 2 years ago, they put out some articles that said, you don't need passwords anymore. In fact, if you just have multi-factor authentication, we don't need passwords. I did attend a speech earlier today, or a presentation on passwordless security, so that was interesting. But it takes a lot of effort to get there, right? Why do security applications cost so much? Anyone make that walk of shame down to finance and ask for $500,000 for the next managed defense solution you want to purchase or anything similar? Yeah, we always have to decide how to balance, cost and benefit, return on investment of applications, right? And then my favorite that I always get is, what do you do? Are you the know before person? Do you send me phishing emails monthly? Because I don't appreciate that. I've also been called an internal terrorist. That goes with IT. So, security, it's fun. Along with that, with communication, you have to consider all the stakeholders in your environment, right? You have to consider your audience when you're trying to spread your word and your awareness and what you can provide with the benefits that you get from the applications that you purchase, okay? So the first ones that you need to talk to are your executive teams, right? They're the ones at the very top who have no idea what you're talking about when you say firewall or endpoint protection, but they know you're expensive and is it really worth it, right? We have cyber insurance. Why do we need all of this, right? If we get ransomware, we'll just pay it, things like that. Next, we have our directors and managers. They know a little bit more about what you're talking about, and they're usually the ones telling you to slow down, take a breath, look at the infrastructure, because everyone needs money, right? It's not just security, okay? Next, you have the employees with little IT knowledge. I kind of spoke on this before. The guys who never log in, right? The guys who hardly ever get on the computers, and now you're asking them to use multi-factor authentication, and they're going, why? Why are you making this so difficult? I won't log in anymore. I won't check my email anymore, right? Employees who are technology experts. These are my favorite. I love these. In fact, we empowered them in our organization, and we picked one per department, and we said, you're obviously good with computers. Guess what your job is? To train everybody else to be good on computers. So, joke's on you. And then the hardest seller you're going to have is your own IT department. Oh, they're a tough sell for sure. So, I'm going to go into a little story time. So, I've worked for the city now for about 4.5, almost 5 years. When I first started about 4 months in, we changed our endpoint protection to, like I mentioned earlier, the little check box, right? The one that just does what it does, and it's good for, like I said, checking the box, okay? We went to one of these next generation super endpoint protections, it does everything, malware analysis, 0-day protection, all this stuff and whatnot. Well, what we didn't consider is what it was going to do to our end users. In fact, we rolled out this security platform with endpoint protection literally in about probably 3 months, didn't do any educational awareness on it, didn't do any kind of training or anything with our staff. And guess what? They hated it. And I heard about it every single day, how slow it was to get your application, to get your documents that you're downloading from your email, how awful it was that it was scanning, websites that you were trying to go to, how it was blocking people from attempting to download malicious things. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible. And like I said, that was about 4 months in, so it kind of gives you a little bit of a feeling that this is going to be rough. I'm a failure. Like, they already hate me, right? And so it really took some time to step back after that and learn a couple lessons, okay? And I think this is important. And like I said, none of this that I'm giving you today should be anything new, right? This should just be something that always sticks in the back of your mind. No matter what you're doing, if it impacts all of the users in your organization, you need awareness and training when deploying out new software. It is what it is. I know we're not always the outgoing personalities, and we like to hide in the server room with the blinky lights and not really be forefront. When people see security coming down the hallway, they go, oh crap. But we need to train our end users on the technology we expect them to use for it to be successful, okay? You also need to make sure you have the support of all the leaders in your organization, starting from top to bottom. And you will get challenges, and you will get leaders that don't agree with you. But if you can get the majority on your side and understand what advancements you're trying to make for an infrastructure, the benefit is all for you then. It's in your favor, okay? And end users need to understand why the changes are necessary, not just how to use the new software technology, but why they need to use it, right? You're protecting your downloads from ransomware, right? Everyone knows, in the last couple of years, ransomware has exploded, right? And not just ransomware, malware. We have all kinds of, things going on crazy in technology right now, but they need to know why is it scanning my downloads? Why does it scan this? Why is it so slow? Why are these protections necessary? And then make it relatable, right? If you roll out a software and a person goes home and they never even talk about it again, then is it really benefiting them after work as well? I don't know. Now, Storytime 2.0, much happier, much more successful. This is the time I deployed a security awareness training platform out to all of my users, and generally they tended to love it. We did a tour around the city. I went to every single department. I met with all of their managers and all of their leadership, and I said, we are doing this for the benefit of not only the city and protecting city data and city assets, but we're doing it for our employees as well to educate them on the threats that are out there with cybersecurity, okay? And you can't argue that. I mean, this isn't something that users can go home and say, well, that was a waste of time. I spent an hour, of my day in this security training and I didn't learn anything from it, right? You have to sell it to them. And I went so far as to buy cups. I went so far as to buy just all kinds of funny stuff. I think I got color changing cups, people love color changing cups, believe it or not. I got first aid kits for security. I thought that was clever. Apparently it just flew over everybody's head. But generally, it's been going really well. People know before, and I'm not afraid to say that's the platform we use. It's probably the majority of what people use. We've been able to take our phish prone rate from 22% down to 1%, and I just think that's great. I get a lot of, I'm not even checking my email anymore, and I go, good, that was easy. Check that box, right? So, like I said, going around, getting your face out there, meeting the people you're trying to help every day is the best thing you can do for your infrastructure, right? So now we're going to talk about each team here, getting buy-in with management. And they are tough. Security is a hot topic right now, so use that to your advantage, right? It's practically in the media every day. You see something about security. You see something about cities getting ransomware. I keep those articles in a little folder, and every day I send them to my boss, just so they know security is still important. Share the facts. The cost of becoming a victim is crazy, crazy expensive nowadays, right? I mean, it went from what, $17,000 to now we're in what, $41 million was the all-time high for ransomware paying, right? Current trends you're seeing in your environment. Just the other week, we watched a crazy increase in phishing emails come through that had Quackbot malware in it. And that's something you need to report so that your leadership knows, hey, this is real. This is on our doorstep, right? What will be the benefit to the company, right? You need that return on investment. I mean, a lot of our managers focus completely on the financial aspect because they see, this is going to cost $100,000 and it does what, Do not be a security know-it-all, and that one is so hard. In the presentation I watched earlier, someone was talking about all the, words that we have that not a lot of people understand when we start going into a deep conversation about security. So make sure you make it simple and easy to understand. Draw pictures. That is not to say that they're not intelligent. They're just not intelligent in security, and you need to help them be that way, right? And don't make it difficult, and have those leaders take the information back to their teams. This goes with my Know Before project, my security awareness training we rolled out. I met with all the managers and they rolled it out to their teams. The importance of it. If you don't have the support, then why would their teams have your support, Next is getting buy-in with your employees, who are even more fun than the managers. Again, make it relatable. Security awareness does not have to end in the office. In fact, one of the most difficult coworkers I had to work with in the city always questioned why he had to take an hour out of his day once a year to take security awareness training. Why did we keep sending phishing emails that seemed to be targeted just at his email address, right? And then he calls me one day and he goes, I'm getting thousands and thousands of emails in my inbox. Can you turn off my email? And I laughed and I said, no, we're not going to turn off your email. But what you need to do is we need to look through those emails, because everyone has heard of an email flood attack, right? You get thousands and thousands of emails, different languages coming through. And then there's that 1 or 2 emails in there that's from Wells Fargo. And it says your bank account information has been changed and your transfer is going to be happening in 3 days. And if we had just shut off his email and deleted all of those, we would have never known that this happened. And this isn't work related. This is his personal Wells Fargo account, you know? And so I remember we helped him change his password. We turned multi-factor authentication on. And he said, if only I had paid attention maybe a little bit to that security awareness training, then maybe I would have turned on multi-factor and this wouldn't have happened, right? So we turned it on, and he is like the first person to take the training now. And he tells his coworkers the story too, because it happened to him. Like I said, it wasn't work related, but you take that extra step and you win that one person over, and next thing you know, you have the whole team on your side. So again, make sure you showcase the benefits of the change, okay? Reassure the fact that security is not a punishment. And I think I get the most arguments from this line here. And the reason for that is we did a lot of research before doing security educational awareness in our environment. And a lot of people said, we give 3 strikes and you're fired. And I said, whoa, that's crazy to me anyways. I don't want to punish people for taking security awareness training. I want to reward them for giving training or taking it, right? I want to offer classes throughout the year, and I want people to say, I have half an hour, I'll take that training course, you know? I'll even give them a cup that color changes if they'll take it. So how can you make it a game? I always gamify my security awareness training, or anything for that matter, you know? We give away all kinds of things. It's pretty fun, and my employees have a lot of buy-in from it, and they tend to like it. I don't get a lot of I don't have to go to HR and say, this person didn't complete their training, you should fire them. I just feel like that would be awful. And if you deal with a company that has sensitive data like financial transactions, like a bank, and that's what you guys decide to do, no hate from me. That's your perspective. I've gotten the best results by being positive with my team, because that way when they come to argue with me and I'm like, hi, how are you? I'm so glad you're enjoying the training. They kind of turn around and they just smile and say, yeah, it's so much fun. I wish I could do it again. So anyways, I have a lot of fun making sure security is not a punishment. Make sure to change it up, you know, how to get the most interest from these team members. If you have the same training every year, then you'll start getting complaints. We do a lot of polling to see if we can mix it up. And like I said, punishing your end users will not gain their trust or interest. So next is work closely with your end users. Don't be a security hermit. And I kind of mentioned on this a little bit earlier, but you need to listen to their needs. An example of this is it snows in South Dakota, as I mentioned before, sometimes quite a lot. And I'm from Phoenix, so any kind of snow is like a lot. And the street department, if we have our training at the end of the year, they're kind of busy. Guess what? Moving snow. Can they take an hour out of their schedule to do security awareness training? No, because, you know, they are out on the road for up to 13 hours a day moving snow. So that's their priority. So we say, that's totally fine. We can make that work. I'll move your training a couple months and your department will just complete it a little bit later. And we'll all be happy, and you'll still take your security awareness training at a later date. So be willing to make those changes. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying don't take the training. You still have to take it. It's still mandatory. But just let's make it so it works in your schedule and your environment, right? And try to balance the best you can your impact on users and security best practices. Obviously, if I could cut the cord to the internet, security would be super easy. And I'm sure every security person makes that joke everywhere we go. Oh, we'll just cut the internet. It'll be great. It's impossible. I've tried. You get yelled at a lot for hiding out in the data center. But what you can do is, like I mentioned, think about your users who are sitting in the finance department, okay? They're not worried about security all the time like you are. Like, you're a crazy person, right? You're always like, oh my God, we're going to get hacked when, you know, we need to make sure multi-factor's on there. We need to make sure we have managed defense. We need to X, Y, Z. I need millions of dollars to make sure we're secure. And our users are sitting there calculating invoices, you know, or they're paying bills that are due. And with that, they're not thinking all the time that, oh gosh, maybe I should check on this vendor, right? And you want them to think that, but maybe they don't, right? And so you have to think about, can a team do their job with the security tools you're asking them to work with? Okay, so I guess that's the best way to say that. Multi-factor authentication, 100% yes. In fact, insurance, and if anyone's played with cybersecurity insurance recently, you know it's kind of throwing your hand in the bucket at what you're going to get back out. We had to roll out multi-factor authentication in a month. Yes, I know you guys are like, you're crazy, you didn't have multi-factor. We did in certain aspects, but we didn't have multi-factor citywide. And you know, the insurance was like, well, you don't need it like citywide. I mean, we do now, but back then they said, no, you just need it for privileged accounts and VPN connections, which we already did and things like that. But we had to think about, okay, these street teams that don't have a city cell phone, that aren't going to carry a key fob because they'll probably lose it. Not that they tend to lose things, but you know what I'm saying. How do we allow them to use these tools to be secure? Okay, so you always have to think about the person that's on the other side when you're rolling these out. And how can you help them, right? So like I said, our endpoint protection is like super cool. And you know, it scans all these downloads and things that happen. And I get a lot of emails that are like, hey, I scan, or my favorite was like, I download Verizon bills. And if you've ever printed out a Verizon bill just for yourself, you already know it's like 10 pages. Okay, well, imagine 1,500 people, okay? Well, probably not that many. Probably like 600 people in the city have Verizon phones. So you can imagine this packet that comes flying out of the downloads. And she says, can you please turn off the scanning for this download? I would not like to, right? But I have to think, is this impacting her work? Is this taking too long for it to download to where she's not going to be able to complete her job? And if the answer is yes, then maybe you need to have a conversation about how to make it easier for her. And I'm not saying make your security more lenient, right? But sometimes you have to consider the benefits versus the cost, okay? And of course, the most difficult group that you'll have to work with is your own IT department, okay? The reason for this is they'll be the first line of response, right? So any fun application that you're like, this is going to be great, it's going to be so secure, guess who's going to get the phone calls about it? Probably your service desk, your help desk folks, right? If they don't understand the tool that you're trying to roll out and the benefits that it's going to provide, then you're going to hear about it. Trust me, we've been there. Again, show how you're benefiting the team long term. I try to do this by letting them in on the conversation, saying we really need to move to a new protection platform. And I want your input on what you think is challenging for you from the old platform. What can improve your workflow and make this a lot easier for you, right? And then my favorite is demonstrate the product's full functionality, help them and train them, give them the tools to service the end users, okay? We rolled out multi-factor authentication. I wrote an entire guide on how to use it, and that may seem like overkill because yes, there's videos that they provide that you can watch, right? But it's more relatable when it comes from you and your infrastructure, and you can show them pictures and how to walk through. And that way when they have questions, you can go, it's on page 3, okay? Empower them, okay? They're not beneath you, as we all sometimes like to think in a pyramid, and I'm tier 3 or whatever. They are on the same team as you, okay? In fact, they're probably more helpful than you are when it comes to it. And we're not all educators, obviously, okay? I didn't just go into security thinking, God, I would love to train people on how to use KnowBe4 and multi-factor authentication, right? But I think it takes a certain person to go through an environment and share that knowledge. And I think that really creates a very successful security platform for you and your organization. Like I mentioned, ask for their input. Make sure you are not stepping on installation toes. Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, so this is going to sound crazy, but we didn't have time set aside to do any kind of application upgrades or any of that. We just kind of did it. And now we definitely have a process for installations and upgrades and things that we do. But at the time when we deployed some of our technology out, yeah, it would step on some installation toes. And then we would have Windows updates going on at the same time endpoint protection updates were going on, and then phone upgrades were going on, and then guess what didn't work? Everything. So always speak with your team and have a plan of attack, right? Create a beautiful timeline of events that you want to happen. Make sure years in advance, I'm just kidding, make sure like weeks in advance that they know the dates ahead of time. Every Monday meeting you go, we're still doing that. Yes, we're still going to do that. And during that time, make sure you keep your date, in the back of their minds, okay? A lot of people tend to forget about security applications and them rolling out and doing the upgrades and stuff, but they still exist and we still need to do things with them. And of course, be willing to do the work you're asking of your team. Like I said, writing how-to guides, help gathering data for installation. It's true. If I wasn't there on the field with these guys doing the work that they're doing, I probably wouldn't even understand the scope of my application and its impact either, right? The endpoint protection I was talking about earlier, even though I feel personally like that was a failed project, a lot of people now look back and see that it was a benefit. But I went to almost every single department that my technicians didn't understand, and we installed it for them and showed them how to use it. And they're a lot more comfortable with it now. And I think they see a lot more of the positives of this endpoint than they do the negatives. And that took a long time. I would say, gosh, it's been probably 2 years, and that just sounds crazy. But they're finally saying, okay, this isn't as bad as we thought it was, thanks or whatever for bringing it into the environment. And I rarely get emails about it anymore, where when we've deployed that endpoint, I tell you what, we got them about every day. So how to defeat the blank stare. This is my favorite, and this is for all the groups that you deal with, right? We've seen it, the look that you've lost your audience. I kind of mentioned on this a little bit earlier. When you start using security lingo, you'll lose your audience because they don't live in that world. And I know I touched on this, but I'm going to talk on it a little bit more. You start talking about what a SIM is, okay? You start talking about white hats, black hats, purple hats, red hat, whatever, right? Blue teams, red teams. You talk about denial of service. You talk about how you really want canary honeypot tokens in your environment, and it just goes, phew. Okay. I've seen it. You get so excited and impassioned. You're like, this technology is so cool. You know what? It's going to benefit us. And everyone's like, yeah, cool. That sounds expensive. Yeah, that's really awesome. So you have to start the conversation with relatable examples when you have these meetings, right? You need to say exactly what they are, make simple terms. Like I say here, a honeypot tricks bad guys in your environment. That sounds cool, right? A denial of service will interrupt the network and cost possibly millions of dollars, right? That's a good way to go about it, right? APT is bad malware, bad people, right? Like I said, white hat, black hat, nothing to do with hats, unfortunately, but rather good or bad threat actors, okay? And a SIM collects data we can use for forensics. I only put that one in here because it's a conversation I had recently with one of our managers is, what is that? And why do we need it? And why is it so expensive? And so I had to explain kind of, not that I don't want you to think I'm trying to think these people are uneducated, but again, they're just not security educated, okay? So when you start saying off all these things, and I'm sure my husband can attest to this too, you totally lose your audience, right? And so you need to make sure to put it in simple terms so that people that don't live in this world and don't wear the tinfoil hats know what you're talking about, right? So what can you do on the daily, okay? Keeping interest. Articles you may find relevant can be shared with your team. I obnoxiously send out articles all the time that I find, Apple iPhone vulnerability, bloop. Android vulnerability, bloop, that gets sent too. Oh, looks like Amazon was hacked, bloop, you're going to get that email too. And it's not to overwhelm our users, but it's to educate them. I actually took kind of a hiatus from sending emails out, and I actually got a lot of people asking, like, where those emails go? I need to know, like, my security cameras are, being compromised, or baby monitors are going crazy from people in China or whatever. So they actually like that information. You're really empowering your users to be up to date with what's going on in the security world, right? Send out reminders to all staff on security best practices. Kind of the same thing about monthly. Just send out a newsletter. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be like 500 pages. I try to make 3 bullets. Password security. Why do we do it? How long do you need to make it? Why do you have symbols in it? Why can't we not go with shorter passwords? What's fun about Know Before that I do like is they have like this captain awareness. I don't know. People like having an icon when it comes to security. We tried to make our own and it turned into a little bug, and then COVID happened and that was a bad idea. So anyways, we stuck with the more Superman type logo there. Create an engaging environment. My favorite thing to do in the whole wide world is do department versus department. They are competitive, especially when you start getting into like the police and fire department. It's crazy. It's crazy. You send like finance against HR and security training, and it gets really heated. There's a lot of insults, and sometimes you have to intervene. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. But they do use leaderboards as bragging rights, okay? They don't even win anything half the time. I mean, sometimes I give a pizza party. Yes, adults still like pizza parties, believe it or not. But I definitely like creating engaging environments. I do a lot of giveaways. I try to buy like, I don't know, a couple backpacks. People love backpacks. People love color-changing bottles. People love just tangible things that they can use. Like obviously in Sioux Falls, there's a lot of fishing people. And so my communications department made us this cool little "Don't feed the fish" stickers, right? It's pretty nifty there. A lot of fishing people, so we did like lunch boxes and things for people that go camping, you know, and they love it. They love doing the security awareness training. We actually kind of traced the engagement rate when we started doing training. We started with probably about like a 10% engagement, which kind of sucks, right? It's like 100 people. And then this last one we did, we had it up to 23. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but 23% is almost double the increase in what we're getting back from our users. So it's a huge benefit to us, right? You spend, you know, a couple $100s on silly things and people will do training for practically nothing, right? And then build partnerships with other departments and ask for their help getting the word out. I'm telling you, communication with other departments is probably the strongest suit I have to this day. People know me and I don't even know them sometimes. I'm just like, obviously, the one who goes around and tells everybody about security. But, you know, they ask me questions, personal questions sometimes. How can I set up multi-factor? And I've never turned anyone down. You know, I say, okay, let's take a look. Oh, I got an email from so-and-so. Is this legitimate? And they call me. Yes, we have a phishing button. Yes, they can click on the phishing button, but I'm okay with them calling me. Ask me questions. I would love to help, okay? Go to different departments, talk to them, help them, any questions they have. Ask them, you know, do a review every year. Like, what can we do to make your lives better? No, I can't shut off the endpoint protection. It's still gonna be there, but what else would you like? You know, things like that. I'm telling you, it's these little things you can do to make a more engaging security environment. And don't get discouraged, and this one's hard. When I did my first project and it kind of failed, I felt really bummed out. I felt like I didn't understand security. I was new in the field and I felt like, wow, I really screwed up and I just got started, right? But never alienate yourself from your team. You need them. No matter, you know, how close you are with your team, it's always going to be kind of like a family and you're going to fight. But eventually you'll need them on your side. So you need to talk to them, especially when they support the teams that you're trying to get engaged. So talk with them, help them, support them with your technology, okay? Everyone is busy. Make priorities and deadlines, okay? Everyone's busy. I don't know anyone who works anywhere that says, I have so much free time. And if you do, kudos, because I don't. So you have to say, you know, this training is an hour, but you have 4 months to do it. Like in 4 months, if I can take the training, then you can take the training. And I try to get a laugh out of it. I say, well, it took me 20 minutes. So how long did it take you? You know? So make priorities and deadlines a thing. Schedule out your projects and make sure everybody knows about them, okay? Not just for security awareness training, but when you're doing things like firewall upgrades and things like that, you need to make sure that everyone's on the same page with your deadlines. And my favorite is always get it in writing, okay? Yeah, you'll get a lot of promises, but make sure that's in writing so you can bring it back up later and say, oh, you said we could do this, so here it is right here. And be patient, okay? Again, this is hard. Sometimes, and maybe not everyone, we get so excited about new technology and we get so excited about changes we want to make in the environment. And sometimes we even get scared. And sometimes we see a vulnerability come through and we say, we need to patch that like now, okay? One of the recent ones was the print nightmare vulnerability. Boy, wasn't that fun. That was a fun July 4th weekend. But you know what? you have to be patient, because if I, applied a patch for that vulnerability when it came out, we would have took out printing for the entire city. And can you imagine who was going to call me first? The library, about how their patrons couldn't print, right? And so you have to be able to make exceptions sometimes, even though it's best practice to patch, but you can patch and make sure their print services are still going. So always be patient with your users, okay? It's not always about we need to do now, it's what we need to do now, but we have to make, sure we're functional as well, okay? And you'll not win everyone over. I'm sure I have fans out there that see me walk by and they're like, oh, I hate training. And that's not all I do, but that's all they think I do. And if you fail, try and try again. With the security education, I brought that forth to my team and they said, no, we don't really need that right now. That's expensive. Let's look at it a different budget year. And then a neighboring county got ransomware and all of a sudden we had funding for it. So be patient. Eventually you'll get the money you need to keep making sure your infrastructure is secure, right? And always work towards improvement. Always explore ways to improve your environment. This includes looking at new technology, even if it seems out of budget now, even if it seems something that's unreasonable, there's always new software and new challenges that you're going to face. AI, technology, and security is a big keyword right now, or whatever. Everyone wants to say, oh, we have artificial intelligence and it's going to develop, endpoint protection and you're not going to have to touch it, which we all know is a lie. Anytime you ever get sold something that security that says you're never going to touch it, it's a lie. But anyways, there's always new things to explore out there. It's just like educating ourselves. And I think in security, we all know that, right? You always have to stay up to date. You always have to stay most knowledgeable on what's out there. And then find ways to reach all members of your organization. I took some couple classes on this actually for my teams because I learned not everybody learns the same. There's different types of communication, right? There's verbal, there's written, there's visual. I know this sounds kind of like off scope here, but really, maybe an email doesn't get through to everybody. Maybe you hold an in-person training. Nobody wants to do it, but it's best for your team, okay? Just talking with someone on the side through an application or a security issue they're having. You have to learn how people learn, okay, to be able to help them. And then challenge your approach. If you're trying to sell something and it's not working, maybe it's you and not them that needs to review, go back to the board and figure out how you can better organize or better explain why you need something in your environment or how you can improve something, okay? Because it's not always your idea or your mind that they can read. So you need to make sure that you have it in a way that they can understand, okay? And my favorite is sometimes you have to be the bad guy. I mean, in security, it's just what it is. All fun and games, security is a serious topic. And I tell you, I like to try and sell it to my employees. But, if you fail KnowBe4, you fail your training, you're going to get me on the phone and we're going to have a sit down and we're going to have a personal one-on-one educational opportunity. That just sounds like a one-way ticket to fun, but it is what it is. It's security, okay? It's the motto of the industry that your end users are your first line of defense. We all know this, okay? So you might as well get used to it and work with them. Make it interesting and engaging, okay? Bring all the facts to the table. You will get challenged, and everybody knows this. Every little aspect on everything you do will always be challenged on why you make things more difficult, okay? So bring the facts to the table and be willing to implement change and challenge standards, which I think is one of the hardest things to do. I was looking at one of the things we need to do as a local government that we've been asked recently is to change our domain from a .com to a .gov domain, which, if you know, that's a very hefty thing to do. And I have to sell that to my team somehow. And so you have to challenge their no's and their maybes. And you have to say, in the long run, this is going to be a benefit. And I'm not going to back down from this. It's something that I'm going to bring up. And eventually it will happen. It's going to take time, like I mentioned earlier. You have to be patient. So, like I said, be willing to challenge these standards and communicate effectively. If you don't communicate effectively, then who are you really serving? And this is a fun little picture. This is my boss, actually, and I got him to go on video with me during a talk for security. And we're like the two most awkward people when it comes to trying to sell. So we get up there and we're like, hey, know before is so fun. You want to win this cup? Take the training, you know? So there's us trying to not be nervous as heck. Yeah, and I'm going to end a little bit early here, but are there any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's challenging. Like I said, I've been working at the city for 4.5 years. I don't feel like I'm an expert, but this is from what I've learned from my teams. This is what's helped serve us best. And maybe it won't work in everybody's environment, but I appreciate that. Any other questions? I mean, I don't have goldfish like I usually do for my training classes to hand out, but... No, they have to be sealed. They have to be sealed packages of goldfish. Not that kind of, oh, I don't hand out live goldfish. Jeez.
Dead goldfish. Security prize.
Well, thank you all for your time today, and I appreciate you hanging out.
Thanks, Katelyn, very much. And I'll follow up on what he said. I've done what you do, all the things you say. That absolutely. Treat people as people. Give them food. They will come. Seriously. And these are the people we have to educate. We educate each other doing the highly technical stuff. That's very cool, and we all have fun, and I love to type at the command line, but it's people that we have to remember. So remember that. Y'all be kind to each other.